We owe much to the ancient Greeks, from the invention of democracy, to citizens' participation in government, to the Olympic Games. The Greeks laid the foundations of science and created Western drama. The Romans conquered and unified Europe. Their greatest achievements lay in administration, infrastructure, and above all, their system of law. The Vikings stormed onto the world stage as raiders from the sea, but they went on to build a vast network of trade, and they were the first to discover America. Between them, these three peoples were the founders of Europe. Our journey into the past takes us first to ancient Greece, known to this day as the cradle of Europe. The land of the Greeks. A Mediterranean world of ancient temples, of countless gods carved in gleaming marble, of mountain villages perched above rugged coastlines. Scattered over the sea are the Greek islands. Many are bare and uninhabited. But on the mainland, there are huge olive groves. In the cool of the mountains, there are oak forests and even fir trees. It was in this land almost 3,000 years ago that the history of the Greeks began, with 100 city-states in the eastern Mediterranean. The mini-empires were constantly fighting. Bloody battles were commonplace. They were united only by their language and their gods, who were believed to live high on Mount Olympus. From there, they intervened in human affairs as they pleased. The Greeks had many gods, but only the 12 most important dwelt on Mount Olympus, where they lived as a single large family. The Greeks portrayed them as ideal human beings. Their features are noble and regular. They are tall, slim, and well-proportioned. But ideal as they might appear, in their natures the gods of Greece were all too human. Their stories are shot through with intrigue, envy, and cunning.
Die griechischen Götter sind ganz anders, als wir uns Götter vorstellen. Sie sind nicht allmächtig, sie sind nicht allwissend, nicht einmal allgegenwärtig. Vor allen Dingen aber verstört uns aus christlicher oder auch aus muslimisch-jüdischer Sicht, dass diese Götter moralisch unvollkommen sind, dass sie streiten untereinander, sie brechen die Ehe, sie stehlen und betrügen. Trotzdem hat man die Herrschaft der olympischen Götter als gerecht angesehen und man hat sie verehrt über mindestens 1000 Jahre.
But they were also feared, especially when playing the game of destiny. The most colorful figure was Zeus, known as the father of the gods and famous for his love affairs. His sister, Demeter, both a virgin and a mother, governed fertility and the harvest. Her moody brother, the sea god Poseidon, enjoyed sinking ships. Athena, born fully armored from the head of Zeus, stood for wisdom and war. Beautiful Aphrodite looked after love. She was married, but rarely faithful. Dionysus drove away sorrow. He loved wine and ecstatic festivals. And finally, Apollo, responsible for all kinds of things, but most of all for the Oracle of Delphi. It was unwise to do anything in ancient Greece without consulting the gods, ideally at the so-called navel of the world, Delphi. The complex of temples at Delphi surrounded the most influential oracle of the Greek world. Thousands of pilgrims made their way to Delphi, taking with them animals for sacrifice, for all knew that the oracle required a precious sacrificial gift.
4 Drachmen haben wir ausgegeben für diesen störrischen Bock.
Apollon wird es zu würdigen wissen.
Das werden wir dann ja sehen.
Many ordinary people made the journey in the hope that fate would decide in their favor. And kings from Croesus to Alexander the Great anxiously awaited the right prophecy. Success or failure, to go to war or not, victory or defeat, it all lay with the pronouncements of the oracle.
Lasst uns mal durch. Wir waren wirklich die Ersten.
Ich bin es, Mimis, wisst ihr noch? Danke.
Tretet ein.
Habt ihr die Geschenke für das Orakel? Ja, natürlich, ja.
The words of the oracle were delivered by the Pythia, a priestess inspired by Apollo. Pilgrims were not permitted to address the Pythia directly. They submitted their questions to the priests, who then passed them on to her. The rite took place behind closed doors. No one has ever discovered exactly what went on in the inner sanctum. According to tradition, the Pythia fell into a deep trance. Only when she had reached delirium could she receive the messages of the gods. When the priestess finally proclaimed the oracle, her words sounded confused, as if she were intoxicated. There has long been speculation as to how the Pythia entered her trance. One explanation is that she breathed in methane and carbon monoxide that issued from fissures in the ground. Inhaling these gases can deprive the brain of oxygen.
Η Pythia θεωρείται ότι είτε εισέπνεε κάποιους ατμούς που αναδύονταν από το εσωτερικό του ναού, είτε μασούσε τα φύλλα δάφνης ή πίνοντας το ιερό νερό από τις πηγές των Δελφών. Ερχόταν λοιπόν σε μια κατάσταση ένθεης μανίας, έβγαζε άναρθρες κραυγές και αυτές τις κραυγές οι ιερείς του Απόλλωνα αναλάμβαναν να τις μεταφράσουν στον χρησμό που δινόταν στον Θεοπρόπο, δηλαδή στον θνητό, ο οποίος είχε έρθει για να λάβει τη συμβουλή του Απόλλωνα.
So the priests were the real authority. They were powerful men who ran the Delphic oracle as a lucrative business.
Könnt ihr uns mitteilen, was sie gesagt hat?
Es ist schwer, die Worte der Götter zu deuten.
Aber irgendwas könnt ihr uns doch sagen, oder?
Apollon ist euch und euren Plänen sehr wohlgesonnen. Und für eure Großzügigkeit, so viel kann ich sagen, wird er euch reich belohnen.
The more valuable the offerings were, the more practical the utterance of the oracle would be. And the priests developed an ingenious system to ensure that each petitioner received an appropriate message.
Die Priester hatten ihre Macht durch das Wissen, denn sie hatten in der ganzen Welt ihre Leute geschickt und sie haben Informationen bekommen, was in der antiken Welt passiert ist. Und als die Leute hierher gekommen sind und sie haben eine Frage gestellt, dann wussten die Priester Bescheid, was für eine Antwort sie geben sollten. Und die Leute, die hierher gekommen sind, sie haben Geld geschickt und so haben die Priester dieses Geld verwaltet und sie haben dann in solchen Schatzhäuser gelagert. Und diese Schatzhäuser und überhaupt das Geld, was in Delphi hineingeflossen ist, haben sie wie eine moderne Bank verwaltet und sie haben auch Geld verliehen. Und so sind die Priester zu dieser großen Macht gekommen.
It could even be said that the priests were running Greece's largest financial centre. The two most important Delphic principles, know thyself and nothing in excess, are said to have been carved above the porch of the temple. However, the most important thing of all was to have the unpredictable gods on your side. Even the powerful city of Athens deposited its votive offerings in Delphi. The other city-states also entrusted their earnings to the sanctuary of Apollo. The faraway Greek colonies were largely independent, but probably had oracles and treasure houses of their own. For centuries, the Greek temples and treasure houses cast their spell on artists, architects, and poets. Today, they attract visitors from all over the world. Two of the most famous are the Temple of Hera in Sicily and the Temple of Poseidon not far from Athens. While most ancient Greeks believed in their mythology and the will of the gods, Greek scholars were open to other explanations of the world. They tried to understand the world by reflecting upon it. The first step was a thorough observation of nature. Greek researchers drew conclusions from the mating behavior of bees, or measured the circumference of the Earth with instruments of their own devising. The Greeks designed a water clock, even if only to regulate the speaking time of politicians. They built equipment such as a machine for drawing lots for the allocation of official positions. The scholars were no longer satisfied with stories of the gods. They wanted to identify cause and effect and to record them as laws. These inquiring minds called themselves philosophers, friends of wisdom. They are regarded as the founders of science. From the 6th century BC onward, their will to understand spread through all of Greece. Schools of philosophy, the forerunners of today's research centers, sprang up like temples of learning. In the 16th century, Rome returned to the ideas of antiquity. Pope Julius II celebrated the great philosophers in a fresco, Raphael's School of Athens. One of them is Socrates, who tormented the Athenians with uncomfortable questions and declared, "I know that I know nothing." White-bearded Plato established the world's first school of philosophy. Its central concern was the search for truth. Beside him is his pupil Aristotle, who invented systematic logic. Then there's Diogenes, famous even though little is known of him. And the great Archimedes, already famous during his lifetime for his scientific ingenuity. Archimedes' reputation won him a very special assignment. He had to discover whether a royal crown was made of pure gold or had been alloyed with some cheaper metal. It was a challenging task, as the precious crown could not be damaged in any way. The idea that saved Archimedes came to him in the bath. The tub was full, and when he got in, it began to overflow. Archimedes realized that the volume of the water that had overflowed corresponded approximately to the volume of his own body. He concluded that the volume of bodies and even their density could be calculated by the volume of water they displaced. He realized that he could use the water method to determine mathematically whether or not the crown was of pure gold. He observed that an object with a density lower than that of water displaced more liquid than an object with a higher density. The comparison only worked, however, if the two objects were of the same weight. It is said that Archimedes was so delighted by his discovery that he cried, "Eureka! I found it," and ran out naked into the street. So Archimedes took the crown and a lump of pure gold of the same weight. If the crown was of pure gold, it would displace the same amount of water as the lump of gold. However, the crown displaced far more, proving it was not pure gold. This was not the only problem solved by the ingenious Archimedes. To this day, he is regarded as one of the best minds of all time, and his Archimedean principle still stands. His fellow scholars were not to be outdone. They designed the first world map with longitude and latitude. They discovered that the Earth is a sphere, and Ptolemy calculated the movement of the planets and other celestial bodies in relation to it. The list also includes the first steam-powered machine and the invention of the water pump. In addition, the Greeks developed equipment such as the catapult and protective vests for their soldiers. Archimedes formulated the law of the lever, laying the foundations for the development of mechanics. We even owe disciplines such as geometry and algebra to the friends of wisdom. Without the great scholars of antiquity and their observations, calculations, and discoveries, much of what we now take for granted would not exist. Perhaps there would never have been domes on top of churches. There would be no explanation of the building blocks of the Earth or any nuclear research. The Industrial Revolution at the beginning of the 19th century might never have happened. Ocean liners might have remained a dream. In the 6th century BC, a reform was implemented in Athens that would radically change the lives of the Greeks. An estimated 80,000 Athenians witnessed a political revolution. The city-state was in crisis. The ordinary people had revolted against the king and the nobles. They wanted a say in all important decisions. It was the birth of the public assembly. Every citizen of Athens could participate, or almost everyone. Only men aged 18 and over were permitted. There was almost always a crowd. The poor received a daily payment for attending, so that they too could have their say.
Einer nach dem anderen! Wer bist du?
Agapetos! Agapetos!
In Ordnung, komm hoch.
The citizens of Athens met once a month in a square near the Acropolis to engage in politics.
Agapetos, mein Freund. Es wurde aber auch Zeit.
Ja, ich hatte noch zu tun.
This monthly People's Assembly was the first of its kind in the history of the world. Its introduction marked the beginning of a new system, democracy. Symbols of the new system were Harmodius and Aristogeiton, two Athenians who assassinated the tyrant Hipparchus. It was quite different in powerful Egypt and the ancient East. Their rulers continued to represent themselves as gods. The law was always on the side of the despots. Their people had few rights, but still had to give their lives in battle. It may be surprising, but democracy was born from such a crisis. At first, the Greeks fought only one another, but then they had to defend themselves against the Persians. Every man was needed in the battle against the foreign invader. All those who were fit to fight, from the nobles to the peasants, joined the army. The armies of the city-states had thousands upon thousands of men. Rich and poor fought in closed ranks, shoulder to shoulder, for their country's independence. In addition, Athens built a new navy. Its thousands of rowers came from among the poor. Together, the Greeks were strong. They defeated the Persians in 2 decisive battles, Marathon on land and Salamis at sea. The victories boosted the growth of Athenian democracy. Having risked their lives constantly for the state, the poorest citizens insisted on their right to a say in its direction. Everyone who fought, whether peasant or day laborer, noble or ordinary citizen, wanted to play his part. By the early 5th century BC, democracy was firmly established in Athens.
Με αυτόν τον τρόπο συνολικά δημιουργούνταν μια καλή προϋπόθεση, μια καλή βάση για τη δημιουργία της δημοκρατίας. Από εκεί και πέρα ήταν και οι επανειλημμένες πολιτικές εμπειρίες τις οποίες είχαν οι διάφοροι πολίτες σε διάφορες ελληνικές πόλεις, που σε κάθε περίπτωση φυσικά ήταν κάτι διαφορετικό. Η Αθήνα, παραδείγματος χάρη, είναι μια ξεχωριστή περίπτωση.
The word democracy means rule of the people. But in Athenian democracy, the people meant adult male citizens. Women, children, slaves and foreigners had no part in it. The wealthy nobles had the greatest political influence. The second and third classes, merchants, tradesmen and wealthy farmers, provided the lower-ranking officials. The fourth class was made up of day labourers, but all classes could participate in the public assembly.
Βρισκόμαστε στο χώρο των συνελεύσεων της Αθηναϊκής Εκκλησίας του Δήμου, της Λαϊκής Συνέλευσης. Στο βάθος βλέπουμε το βήμα των ομιλητών πάνω στο λόφο της Πνίκας. Ουσιαστικά εδώ ήταν ο χώρος που η Αθηναϊκή Δημοκρατία έπαιρνε τις αποφάσεις της.
Ah, da kommt er.
Bürger von Athen! Ihr wisst alle, dass unsere Flotte die größte und stärkste der Welt ist.
Und das ist auch gut so!
Und doch ist unser Frieden ständig in Gefahr. Was, wenn uns eines Tages der freie Zugang zu unserem Hafen abgeschnitten wird? Es ist höchste Zeit, eine Schutzmauer zu errichten, von Athen bis nach Piräus.
Leicht gesagt! Und wer soll das alles bezahlen?
Hör zu! Die Reichen werden extra besteuert für den Mauerbau.
Κεντρικό σημείο ήταν ο ομιλητής. Ομιλητές ήταν ρήτορες οι οποίοι συχνά μπορούσαν να αποκληθούν και δημαγωγοί, με την έννοια ότι ήταν οι ηγέτες του Δήμου, οδηγούσαν το λαό. Αρχικά αυτό είχε μια θετική έννοια. Αργότερα ο όρος δημαγωγός παίρνει μια αρνητική έννοια, διότι μπορούσαν να οδηγήσουν το λαό και σε λανθασμένες αποφάσεις σύμφωνα με τα δικά τους και όχι τα πραγματικά λαϊκά συμφέροντα.
Bürger von Athen, ich frage euch, wollt ihr wie bisher in Wohlstand leben und unseren Feinden trotzen? Dann stimmt alle dafür, die Schutzmauer zu bauen. Sagt ja! Sagt ja! Sagt einfach ja!
Will noch jemand was dazu sagen? Jetzt ist die Zeit. Er möge nach vorne kommen und hier zu uns allen sprechen. Nun hört gut zu. Wer gegen den Bau der Mauer ist und gegen den Vorschlag des Silenos, der hebe die Hand. Und wer für den Vorschlag ist, erhebe jetzt die Hand.
In the end, it was the little man's vote that counted. Laws were passed or rejected by majority vote, and the common people were always in the majority.
Das Ergebnis ist klar. Damit ist es beschlossen. Die Mauer wird gebaut.
Only the rich paid special taxes. The idea of fleeing to a tax haven would never have occurred to them. No state prior to Greece left so many tablets inscribed with laws. There are thousands of decrees etched in stone. The fragments record all kinds of decisions, building projects, whether to go to war, whether to spend money on a celebration.
Σε τέτοιου είδους στήλες αναγραφόντουσαν τα σημαντικότερα από τα ψηφίσματα της Αθηναϊκής Εκκλησίας του Δήμου. Τα αυτά συνήθως ιδρύονταν σε εμφανή και διακεκριμένα σημεία, όπως ήταν η Ακρόπολη ή η Αρχαία Αγορά. Στη συγκεκριμένη στήλη έχουν αναγραφεί δύο ψηφίσματα με τα οποία ορίζονται οι εισπράκτορες των συμμαχικών φόρων και καθορίζονται οι διαδικασίες μέσα από τις οποίες αυτοί οι εισπράκτορες θα ελάμβαναν τα χρήματα προς όφελος της Αθήνας. Μάλιστα, στο εναπομείναν τμήμα του αναγλύφου εικονίζονται αγκία και σάκι που προφανώς μέσα στα οποία υπήρχαν τα χρήματα. Δηλαδή είναι ένας συμβολισμός των χρημάτων που έχουν εισπραχθεί.
Many of the decrees related to tax. The word foroi, tax, often appears on the inscriptions, but the taxes were levied only when necessary as a one-off payment. When the Assembly voted for a law, it took effect immediately, and everyone could read it on the stylus. For example, in the Agora, the illiterate could ask a reader appointed by the city to read the new decrees aloud. Official positions were allocated by lot. No particular qualifications were required to become a market policeman, a pestilence commissioner, or a judge, but candidates needed an impeccable reputation and a little luck.
Leonidas Linos, du bist gewählt. Und hier haben wir Gregorios Panakos. Und auch Galamis ist hiermit gewählt.
For drawing lots, the Greeks invented a voting machine. There were two machines at each entrance to the place of assembly. On the front of the machine, there were 5 columns of slots. Each column was assigned a letter of the alphabet, with the letter corresponding to a group of candidates. Tokens bearing candidates' names were placed in the column for their group. White and black balls were then dropped into the voting machine. If a white ball fell at the foot of the column, that group was elected. A black ball meant not elected.
Η κλήρωση ήταν μια βασική έννοια και αρχή της Αθηναϊκής Δημοκρατίας. Ξεκινούσαν από την αντίληψη ότι όλοι οι Αθηναίοι πολίτες πρέπει περίπου να έχουν τις ίδιες δυνατότητες στα πλαίσια μιας ισότητας να ασκήσουν και δημόσια καθήκοντα εκτός από ειδικά καθήκοντα όπως του στρατηγού. Για το λόγο αυτό επινόησαν ειδικές μηχανές που θα δείτε τα κληρωτήρια και με αυτόν τον τρόπο καταπολεμούσαν τις περιπτώσεις διαφθοράς. Δεν θα μπορούσε έτσι, παραδείγματος χάρη, κάποιος που κληρονόταν να συμμετάσχει σε ένα δικαστήριο να ξέρει πολύ πριν σε ποιο ακριβώς δικαστήριο θα πήγαινε, ώστε να συνεννοηθεί ως προς το ποια στάση θα τηρούσε.
The rulers of Rome did not think very highly of the Athenian model. Later, absolute European monarchs rejected any participation of the people in their government. In Germany and in France, the people had to fight for their rights for centuries. With the French Revolution, democracy finally returned to continental Europe. Women have had the right to vote since the early 20th century. The right of the people to participate in government is now a basic principle throughout the Western world. But in ancient Greece, the precondition for participation in politics was to be a good warrior. For young men, physical fitness was compulsory. Although they learned a little rhetoric and grammar in the schools, boys into sport. They performed it naked, in Greek, gymnos. Thus, the word gymnasium means literally naked place. The demands on the boys were extremely high. Those who showed talent during training were given special assistance to help them compete in the main sporting events. It was one of the principal aims of the Greeks to have a well-schooled body. They were the first people to revere the proportions of the human body and to record them in stone. For the first time, statues looked like flesh and blood human beings. The flawlessness of Greek sculpture sets the aesthetic standard to this day. The Renaissance took up the Greek ideal once more, creating fresh masterpieces. However, the artists of the Renaissance were more concerned with the perfect representation of human anatomy than they were with developing a perfect body. Few Renaissance men ever subjected their own bodies to hard training.
Die griechische Plastik nimmt als Thema den menschlichen Körper. Das kann Gott darstellen, das kann den Athleten darstellen. Er ist nicht unbedingt der Durchschnittskörper, genauso wie heute. Es werden ideale Körper gesucht und die werden in ihrer Schönheit, in ihrer athletischen Ausführung mit allen Muskeln, mit prononcierten Rippen und schönen Bewegungen gezeigt.
The Greek ideals of beauty live on in the modern world, even if few people today are as disciplined in their training as the ancient Greeks were. It was very different for the youth of Greece. If they were not training for war, they were training for athletic competition. There were around 300 events spread over the year. Everyone who took part did so to win. Victory brought cash prizes and helped in one's career. All of the Greek sporting disciplines survive today. The discus was there from the beginning, as well as the javelin. Both require strength and a sophisticated technique. The Greeks also pioneered boxing, although the rules are now much stricter. And in running, all that matters in the 21st century is world records. The Greeks' greatest sporting event, the Olympic Games, was held every 4 years in the sanctuary of Olympia. Messengers toured all of Greece to announce the beginning of the Games. All the city-states, even avowed enemies, were invited, and all fighting had to stop. During the Games, a truce, the Olympic peace, prevailed throughout the Greek world. Tens of thousands attended the spectacle. It was originally dedicated to Zeus. Gymnasiums were made available so that competitors could train during the Games. The athletes were to lack for nothing, for then, as now, they were idolized. Those who won received the laurel crown and eternal glory. One legend was Milo of Croton, also known as Fatso. He was a wrestler who devoured 8 kilos of meat per day. Theogenes, a boxer, notched up 1,300 victories. His statue was said to have healing powers. And the notorious wrestler, Arakion. Even as he lay dying, he dislocated his adversary's toe. Even some of the losers are remembered. Apollonius arrived too late and was not allowed to compete. Eupolis was found to be corrupt, and another Theogenes was punished for boring the spectators. By the 5th century AD, the Olympics had faded away. The Christian emperor Theodosius banned pagan religions, and Olympia itself disappeared, first beneath a city and then under meters of rubble. It was not until the late 19th century that archaeologists uncovered the ruins. Once again, Olympia was on everyone's lips. In 1896, the first modern Olympic Games were held in Athens. Very soon, women were allowed to compete. Later, black athletes were also admitted. It is impossible to imagine the globalized world of the 21st century without the Olympic Games. Regardless of which country hosts them, they are seen as a universal symbol of peace and international understanding. An equally important legacy is the theatre. Even if today's theatre is less popular with the mass audience, in ancient Greece, every little town was proud to have a theatre of its own.
Το θέατρο γενικά έχει την αρχή του σε θρησκευτικές τελετουργίες. Αυτό που γνωρίζουμε περισσότερο είναι η χορή του Διονύσου, από τον οποίο, τα σατυρικά δηλαδή, η σατυρική χορή, από τους οποίους ξεκινάει το δράμα. Αυτό είναι αρχικά μια τελετουργία θρησκευτική. Το ίδιο και εδώ, με τη διαφορά ότι εδώ η θρησκευτική τελετουργία έχει να κάνει περισσότερο με την παρουσία του Θεού γιατρού, ο οποίος γιατρεύει τους ανθρώπους.
In Greek drama, there were strict performance rules, and each play was performed only once. On the stage, there were only 3 actors, all of them men. They wore masks to play different parts, the old, the young, and, of course, women. What counted was the grand gesture, a loud voice, and good diction. There was also a chorus, which moved the story forward and explained its background.
Wieso sind die nicht fertig?
But most important of all were the patron, a nobleman who paid for the production, and, of course, the playwright.
Mach das noch mal.
Euripides. Euer neues Stück scheint wieder spektakulär zu werden.
Ja, natürlich.
Wenn ich an eure letzten Stücke denke, ich möchte eure große Arbeit nicht anzweifeln,
Sag
aber
nur, was ihr denkt.
Ich verstehe nicht, warum am Ende immer alle sterben müssen.
Es ist eine Tragödie, deshalb.
Was Amüsantes, Leichtes wäre doch auch mal schön.
Etwas zum Lachen, hä?
aber ich schreibe Tragödien.
Ja, das weiß ich, aber ich möchte dieses Mal etwas anderes sehen. Verstehen wir uns?
Ich verstehe überhaupt nichts.
Euripides, ich meine es ernst. Ein bisschen mehr Leichtigkeit wäre nicht falsch. Denk nach, ich komme morgen wieder.
In the beginning were the epics, wide-ranging verse stories of heroes. Homer chanted the Iliad and the Odyssey to public audiences. In tragedy, heroes struggle to escape their fate. It almost always ends in their death. But comedies were performed side by side with the tragedies. They were often coarse, but always ended happily.
Όπως λέει ο Αριστοτέλης, είναι κάθαρση της ψυχής. Μέσα από τις ιστορίες που λέει ο μύθος, παρακολουθώντας κανείς τη λύση που δίνει ο Θεός ή που δίνουν οι άνθρωποι, γιατρεύεται. Έτσι λοιπόν η σύγχρονη δραματοθεραπεία ξεκινάει από την αρχαιότητα. Το δράμα βοηθεί ώστε η ψυχική υγεία να επανέλθει.
Provided that the audience could hear the director's message. Greek theatres could hold up to 14,000 people.
Es muss größer sein. Eure Gesten müssen viel größer sein. Versteht ihr? Es geht um Leben und Tod. Und ihr da hinten, beeilt euch mal lieber, statt so blöd zu gucken. Arbeitet weiter, ihr auch. Wir haben nicht mehr viel Zeit. Ihr müsst noch deutlicher sprechen, damit man euch auch in der letzten Reihe hören kann. Also, ihr seht euch an. Du erkennst den Bruder nicht. Nicht so nah. Gut. Na, jetzt kommt endlich raus. Ziert euch nicht so. Die Haare sehen gut aus. Hör auf zu lachen. Aber der Busen, das ist noch nicht so schön. Das muss irgendwie besser aussehen. Sag den Schneidern, sie sollen das alles nochmal machen.
At the theatre in Epidaurus, every word can be understood, even from the very top rows. The theatre is famous for its acoustics.
Η κλίση του θεάτρου είναι τέτοια και επίσης οι διαστάσεις των εδωλίων είναι τέτοιες, δηλαδή το πλάτος και το ύψος τους, ώστε να ενισχύουν με τις ανακλάσεις τον ήχο που φτάνει στα αυτιά του ακροατή και έτσι να έχουμε καλύτερη καταληπτότητα στην ομιλία. Επίσης τονίζουν τις συχνότητες που είναι σημαντικές για την ομιλία. Το χαρακτηριστικό που κάνει το θέατρο, επειδή όλες οι ανακλάσεις συγκεντρώνονται εδώ. Αλλά αν προχωρήσουμε και πάμε κάπου αλλού, βλέπετε ότι ο ήχος αλλάζει, γιατί ακριβώς δεν έχουμε αυτή τη συμμετρία από τις ανακλάσεις. Το θέατρο αυτό είναι τέλειο από πλευράς ακουστικού σχεδιασμού, αλλά εμείς οι ειδικοί δεν γνωρίζουμε αν αυτό ήταν αποτέλεσμα υπολογισμών ή εμπειρίας που είχαν αποκτήσει οι αρχαίοι. Οπότε είναι ένα μυστήριο για μας αυτό.
The idea of the theatre as a purifier of the soul and the mirror of human conflicts is still influential today and has developed new forms. Now it is not only the world's stages, but also its screens that tell stories of tragic or happy events every night. When pictures began to move, film took the lead from theatre. The dream factories of the cinema reached the hearts of millions. There are always new heroes to conquer the screen, but their stories follow the time-honored pattern of tragedy and comedy. The culture of the Greeks spread throughout the known world. in no small part because of the king of Macedonia, Alexander the Great. In the 4th century BC, Alexander set out to conquer the world. He brought the Greek city-states to their knees and won a far-reaching empire. Throughout his empire, Alexander established the Greek language and Greek education. In doing so, he founded the era of Hellenism. From his native city of Pella, Alexander carried the Greek heritage all the way to India. By then, however, the golden age of Athens was long since over. After Alexander's death, his empire broke up and a new power emerged: Rome. The Romans were specialists in conquest. In contrast to the ever-quarreling Greeks, they emphasized organization and discipline. It was not difficult for the Roman legions to subjugate the small Greek city-states once and for all. Politically, the Greeks remained what they were at the beginning: individualistic and divided. They were incapable of uniting against the Romans. But culturally, it was Greece that conquered.
Ο ελληνικός πολιτισμός επηρέασε πολύ και μέσω των Ρωμαίων τη νεότερη Ευρώπη. Γιατί οι Ρωμαίοι ήταν συνειδητοί μαθητές των Ελλήνων και αναγνώριζαν ακριβώς την οφειλή τους στον ελληνικό πολιτισμό. Σε θέματα θεάτρου, σε θέματα μόρφωσης, σε θέματα γενικότερα παιδείας. Οι Ρωμαίοι συνέχισαν πολλά στοιχεία τα οποία παρέλαβαν από τους Έλληνες. Ακόμη και σε θέματα νομοθεσίας τους, που ήταν κάτι κυρίως ρωμαϊκό, υπήρχαν οφειλές, ακόμη και όροι, τους οποίους είχαν λάβει από τους Έλληνες.
And the legacy of the Greeks is enormous. In their search for explanations, the Greeks discovered universal laws of nature and vindicated scientific thought. No people has been so influential in the development of modern technology, in the water and in the air. The Greeks made progress possible. Because of the trail they blazed, we are now able to measure not only the world, but also the universe. With their art of storytelling, they created great works of world literature and inspired the film industry. The huge venues that today attract thousands of spectators can be traced back to the theatres of the Greeks. And the idea of bringing many peoples together in peaceful competition is still celebrated every 4 years at the Olympic Games. Around the globe and across all borders. But the most important legacy of ancient Greece is an idea. The idea that the citizens are the masters of the state and govern it with laws that they themselves have adopted. Many European countries would probably not be democracies today if not for the revolutionary reforms of the ancient Greeks. And not just European countries. Abraham Lincoln echoed the Greeks in his dictum: government of the people, by the people, for the people. The achievements of the ancient Greeks have stood the test of time. To this day, they influence profoundly the life and thought of the Western world. There can be no doubt that ancient Greece was the cradle of our culture.